Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Let's Process That podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Emily Christopher.
And I'm Nick Honorkamp.
We are so glad that you have joined us. And today we are going to talk about something that I feel like every time I turn on NPR, I turn on the news, I turn on TikTok, I open any social media platform, this is being mentioned, and that is artificial intelligence, also known as AI. And it has just taken over a lot of what we're doing, how we're interacting with technology. And I'm going to go ahead and say right now, Nick and I are not tech experts. However, we both work in fields that are leaning into AI. And I think many of you, well, actually, if you're listening to this right now, you're listening to us on a streaming platform of some sort. So you are also interacting with some form of AI. It's inevitable. It's here. So with that, what do we do with that? What does it look like? What does it feel in both of our different worlds that it's being used? And so, again, we're not the experts. We do have some friends who work with artificial intelligence directly, and we've asked some questions. We've gotten some feedback. But there's really a large question mark on what does this really look like? Is this like a Will Smith movie? What's going on? So, Nick, I'm just going to toss it to you, and we're going to have a very candid conversation about what does AI look like to us average Joes right now who are just in the coming of age of artificial intelligence.
Well, and let me add another layer. I think if we can talk about the morality of AI, because if you and I were to talk about AI, we'd be done in 3 minutes. I mean,
correct.
We've heard things. We know a couple of things. We can ask questions, but when it comes to morality of AI and how it's used, I think that really opens up the conversation a lot. So before we get to the morality side, I was watching a program within the last couple weeks. And there was an older person who was in a classroom that was heavily guided by AI. And there were like little 4-year-olds in there. And the woman asked the kids, do you know what AI is? And one of the little boys raised his hand and said, yeah, I know what AI is. So what's AI stand for? And he said, robots. So to him, artificial intelligence is actually robots acting out and doing stuff. To me, AI is the collective wisdom of mankind. It is mankind has taken the best practices, probably open source, so there's nobody specific doing this, but an open source has pulled together the best of mankind's wisdom to put in a program that then can operate on our behalf with our mind behind it. Now, what I find interesting about that is I wonder how many indigenous people were considered and consulted when we came up with the best practices of AI. I mean, just think about how weighted AI is to the Western civilization, not the third world countries. There's a lot of people got left out or are being left out. What if the indigenous tribes have all the wisdom and we've been missing it this whole time? And so I guess what I would say is I did talk to a techie guy today, one of our friends at M, and I just said, hey, what do you think about AI? He said, AI is neither good nor bad. It is what it is. He says, some people think AI is going to be this help. At the very worst, it's going to be Terminator, where AI is taking over, killing us all. Yeah. He says, my challenge, my concern is not with AI. It's with the blatant acceptance of AI by mankind, knowing it's not been proven yet. And he said, my challenge is, what is wrong with all these human beings who welcome AI without vetting it to see if it actually can do what we've asked it to do? It's not worked out all the kinks to be able to process all the way through problems and give us the answers we want because we didn't know how to program it. And so now we didn't know how to program it. We've set it up, and now we're asking it questions, and we're accepting the answers when the answers are not defined yet and they need more work. I thought that was interesting thought process from somebody who actually understands this stuff. But I guess more than anything, it's only as good, information out is only as good as information in. So, I'm curious, who programmed all this? Who came up with AI? Have we considered all the indigenous people of the world, and is everybody being represented? Is there a woman on the engineering team? That's what I want to know.
That's what we want to know. Yeah, and I think that's the interesting part right now. Like I was saying earlier, it's a big question mark. Like, I'm sure there's some people somewhere who probably have this figured out fully, but to the general public,
Yeah.
we do not. And most of our extensive knowledge is that it's coming into different software programs. So like, for instance, I'll just share with you how I use AI on a daily basis. So I'm a marketing professional. So I use a software to schedule social media posts and videos. And so it has a feature on there, and it's this like generated, this is the best time of day to get the most traffic on your page. We've taken, again, all the information, all the data, and have collected it to say, this post will do its best at 7:04 p.m. on Thursday night, which is great. Like, that is so wonderful to know that I don't have to just guess or try to take the data and collectively come up with an idea of approximately what's the best time to post this. So that's really awesome. And again, I use that tool almost every day, or at least 5 times a week. Now, I'm about to say something. I might make some people mad. There's also, and again, in my line of work, marketing professionals are getting very, very lazy and leaning into different AI tools, and you're sounding like a clown in your copy. You're sounding silly in your social posts because everybody's saying the same kind of thing and like using the same phrases, and it doesn't sound authentic. It doesn't sound like it's actually the voice of the company because AI doesn't intimately probably doesn't know your company and the voice that you have on socials or in marketing or communication. And so you've generically plugged information in and you sound a little silly. I've seen some things where I'm just like, wow, this is not good. Now, there have been times where it can generate a good idea and you can kind of use that as a launching pad, which is great. But like leaning into it right now for especially smaller organizations or businesses, it's not going to give you the voice that you really need. It's not going to be authentic. And there's a lot of people you can fool with that for a while, but not for long. And maybe it'll progressively get better as the more information we put in, the better it'll come out. But for the lack of like just sounding like an actual human and not sounding generated, I think is very important, especially for our day and age, because people want to connect with something relevant and real and not just another like catchy, trendy, just hot thing right now at this moment kind of thing. So that's my 2 cents. I've also seen where people just use it, like overuse it. And again, it just sounds kind of silly and unprofessional a lot of times. I'm just going to be honest. And then of course, there's AI. A lot of the photography stuff is really cool. That's another thing I do as a photographer. Lightroom has some really cool AI stuff. So you just kind of click a button, it'll auto adjust your lighting so you're not having to sit there and edit for hours and hours, which is really cool. But it still doesn't do what I can do and has my taste and my preferences. So there's just a few things. Like I said, that's kind of what I've been running into with AI. I'm curious, Nick, with your line of work and all these different people that you're connecting with over the globe, what are some of the excitements around AI and what are some of the uncertainties or even frustrations with what people are seeing so far?
All right. Well, I've got a little like ace in the hole, which is, if we're going to talk about the morality of AI, I just want to mention God in a broad view and get to that at some point. Before I get there, though, I think one of the things you just said is very important. AI comes from our brain. It doesn't come from our heart. So it can give us data and information, but it can't replicate our tone, our voice, our heart. And particularly your generation and younger, they're looking for authenticity. They're not looking for you to say it the best way it can be said. They're looking to hear your heart in what you're trying to say. And I think AI leaves this dull echo. It might give us information like when's the best time to post on social media, but to actually write the post where it connects with someone else's heart, it doesn't have the capability of doing that, and we've got to be careful about that. So if I'm going to start with morality, before I get into the church language, there's some very interesting things I want to bring up about the church language. This is not a religious conversation, but it is how AI is impacting those in the church lane. First of all, the first ethical thing that I heard was students writing papers using ChatGPT, stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
And they don't know anything about, our galaxy, but they've got to write a paper on our galaxy. So they said, hey, AI, write me, a paper. And they write a paper. And then their classmate did the same thing. It's slightly different, but mostly the same. And so I kept seeing all this stuff about how are teachers going to know if this is your actual work or if you've leaned in and asked AI to do it for you. And so that was the first thought about morality, about, okay, we can use this to cheat the system a little bit. So recently I was with a room full of 70-year-olds, okay? Room full of 70-year-olds. I was I was second youngest person in the room. Tina was the youngest, I was second youngest. And they started talking about AI. Well, obviously, they got very nervous about AI because, one, they don't understand it. And number two, their generation has this love-hate with technology. And so I just happened to bring up that I knew a pastor that used AI with their sermons, and they freaked out. I mean, that was not good at all. And I said, no, wait a minute, come on back. What he does is he writes his sermon and then puts it through AI to see if there's any corrections to the way he says something, or if AI would make a suggestion on how to make his message clearer. And I personally think AI on the back end of a term paper, on the back end of a sermon, is totally appropriate. On the front end, it's plagiarism. On the front end, it's disingenuous, it's not real. And so for me, I think AI plays a great part on the back end. I had to write a charter the other day, didn't really know what I was doing, but I sat down and took a couple paragraphs and just put it together, sent it through AI. What it spit out said better. It said what I wanted to say better than what I could have said on my own. So I went with that version, but I would have been just as happy to not have done that. But now they've got this new app called Text Jesus, and it's an AI app programmed with the Bible. Okay. So if you don't want to read the Bible or actually talk to God, you can text and you can say, Jesus. There's a story in the Bible about a woman named Rahab who lied to her king to protect the Israelites. But lying is supposed to be a sin. Was that a sin in this case? And AI literally will give you scriptures explaining where lying is a sin. But in this case, there was extenuating circumstances and she was doing the better good, and many people would overlook this as not being a sin. And you literally can interact with the Bible through an AI app. But then again, that gets back to morality. There are Christians that are saying, no, we need to read the Bible and talk to God, not text AI and ask AI to replace God's voice with the collective wisdom of the world. That is the challenge in morality, is people that say, is the highest wisdom in this universe? Is it God? Is it aliens? Or is it the collective wisdom of mankind? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, if somebody thinks that texting an app is like actually God texting back, that's obviously not it. So
there are some.
Well, okay. But to me, I would think that if somebody was genuinely asking those questions and like wrestling with their faith, I would be excited for them to ask those things. And think of it this way, it's the same thing as going to a commentary. So why are you, just because it can do it quicker than you could do flipping through the book or a book or taking 6-7 different commentaries and comparing them all, and it'll give you a type of theological outlook on something. But it's just like any other commentary. You're reading somebody's thoughts and opinions based on their biblical interpretation. So to me, I'm like, hey, if somebody wants to use this as a tool, then let them use it as a tool. Because again, they could go and grab any other pastor or commentary, and they're not going to get the same answer.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let
it was
me
this
respond to
just
that.
like this morning. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, just for those that don't know, a commentary is written by theologians about the
Mm-hmm.
Bible. So they read the Bible and then they wrote their book of what the Bible actually meant. And I've heard scholars say commentaries are good as a supplement. That go ahead, read the
Mm-hmm.
Bible, see what you see for yourself, then consult the commentary for fresh insight to round out what you think. But don't read the commentary about the Bible until you've read the Bible. And so again,
Mm-hmm.
I think that AI is good on the back end, but not on the front end, so that I want to figure out what I believe and then consult other voices for a fuller picture of what I believe. But what were you going to
Mm-hmm.
say, Em?
Yeah, well, it's just interesting this morning at church. I was sitting around with some of the guys before service started, and we had somebody who had a Methodist background, a Presbyterian pastor, and somebody with a Baptist background, and then me, the evangelical mutt. And we were talking about baptism, and we were talking about, how Methodists and Presbyterians, you are baptized as a baby, and then you know, they don't baptize you again because you were baptized as a baby. And then the Baptist guy was like, well, no, I don't really agree with that because, you have to be able to consciously declare your faith and all this stuff. So it was just all these different things. And, if you're Mormon, but then you become Presbyterian, they will rebaptize you because Mormons don't baptize in the Trinity. It was just like this whole thing. But again, so here we are with 4 or 5 people who are intelligent, who know their theology and their doctrine, and that's their opinion. They believe the Holy Spirit has enlightened them to this opinion and to this knowledge. And so, again, just like anything else, you can Google stuff and 1,000 ideas and opinions and theologies are going to come up. So if somebody's using a tool for a resource, as long as they understand this is going to give me one answer and then I'll go over here and it may give me something else, then all right, it's a resource at the end of the day, just like anything else, whether it is biblically, theologically, anything to do with uh, philosophies of any sort. You need to like sit with the Spirit and ask, okay, enlighten me and show me. There's so many different opinions. There's so many different things to look at and take in. So I'm going to need help spiritually to be enlightened and shown what is truth. Because 5 people this morning I stood with are incredible Christian people, and they all had 5 different outlooks on baptism.
Sure.
So just like with that, I think we have to be open and willing to understand that AI is a resource, and it's pulling from whatever we give it, it's going to regurgitate. Yeah. So if every opinion is thrown in there, that computer, that robot is doing its best to take it all and put it into one conscious thought or answer.
And obviously, just in Christianity, you mentioned Mormons. I'm talking about just Christianity. I text the Text Jesus app, and I was preaching at a church called Calvary Baptist Church. You can't get more Baptist, more gospel than Calvary Baptist Church. So I text Jesus and said, "What should I preach this Sunday at Calvary Baptist Church?" I couldn't help it. I assumed it would tell me John 3:16. I just knew that's what I was going to say. And then what it said was, hey, it's important that you understand what denomination this church is part of and what their general denomination believes. Secondly, can you go and look on their statement of faith and see what they believe on their website? And then maybe even check out their culture and see what exactly is appropriate and what's not appropriate to preach at this kind of church. I thought that was balanced. I thought that was some
Fabulous.
good input right there.
Yeah.
And so I think there's an older generation that fears that instead of actually reading the Bible or talking to God, we're going to get on our phone and text this Jesus app and let the collective of mankind guide and direct us versus receiving spiritual guidance from on high, where your younger generation is like, yeah, but if I have an app that I can go to and ask it what the Bible says about this, or what, what does God feel about that? I can quickly get information. Praying for an hour and hearing God is a lot harder than texting something and having a quick answer. Your generation's not afraid of getting a wrong answer or getting an incomplete answer. An older generation, particularly if it has anything to do with God or the Bible or whatever, they want absolute black and white truth. And so the morality piece of AI is, what place do we give it in our lives? For instance, do I consult AI on what to get my wife for her anniversary? And if I think AI knows my wife better than I know my wife, who really has the problem? Right?
Right. Yeah. But you could say, I know my wife loves this, this, and this. She's a big fan of this musical artist. She really enjoys
True.
this.
True.
Again, you give it answers, and maybe it's going to come up with something creative that on your own you couldn't. And to me, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. If Adrian was like, I plugged in all your favorite things and asked AI what to get you, and it come up with this, and it knocked it out of the park, I'd be like, heck yeah, thank you. Thank you for, because even that takes time. Because again, information in, information
That's
out.
it.
So
Yep.
I'm fine with that. And I just had two of our best friends, when this airs, they will already be married. Congratulations. But the way they planned their entire honeymoon was, they were like, we want to go to Portugal. We've never been. We do want to see this, this, and this, and we want to stay in these small, off the normal path kind of places. We really enjoy like non-touristy spots. We would like to see this, whatever. And it gave them a perfect itinerary,
Wow.
dates, times, locations, and they're going on their honeymoon, and they were like, yeah, it was great. Like, it was like having a travel agent, and there it was. And of course it's not as great as having a travel agent, because then they had to go book everything themselves. But if that's something that you're interested in doing, then there are really cool, unique ways that it's going to help life. But then again, like I was saying, it's not an actual travel agent, so it's not doing the annoying work for you. So that human part of it cannot be taken out. Like, there's just some things right now that AI, like, you can't just say, okay, now book all this for me. That doesn't exist. Now, in 2 to 5 years, I think it probably will. But right now, there's so many things where we have to have the human side of it as well. So, yeah, it's just, it's a fascinating thing.
I think most people forget about religious morality. Let's talk about just most people. I think that there is some level of concern when you've already put in all the data about Portugal, you know where you want to go, what you want to do, and then 3 years from now, it's evolved, and we put in the same trip, and AI says, no, that wouldn't be good for you. Let's not do that. You should stay with the tourist path. And it begins to curb our options, begins to limit us, begins to protect us from ourselves. Whether you're, Christian, secular, whatever, that is a real thing where people are concerned that AI will grow and learn and then begin to make decisions for us. Make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's when, as a human being with free will, and you can say yes or no. When it gives you an option, you can say, I don't want to do that, click out of it. So I think we're just going to have to remind ourselves, hey, you still get to choose. You get to choose. So make your decision. Or at least that's my 2 cents with that. And if it gets to know me that well, that'll be kind of freaky, but I don't know. I don't, sometimes I'm like, it could be good, because they're like, hey, you said that you're not really that adventurous and you're trying to go skydiving. Maybe not.
Yeah, well, and I was thinking about, let's say that Adrian plugs in all your favorite things and AI comes back and says, hey, Taylor Swift's going to be on a 2-week river cruise in Europe, and I know that's something you want to do. I can get you on the same boat. And you're like, book me. And then 3 years from now, you try the same thing, and AI shuts off your credit cards because it doesn't want you near
Yeah.
Taylor Swift. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it denies you access. You can't get a passport. You can't get a visa. And that's the thing, is that we're saying, well, what if it's become smarter than us? Well, obviously, it's going to become smarter than us. You take the collection of all of our wisdom, you put it in a program and tell it to learn from
Mm-hmm.
itself. It's going to learn. What do we
Yeah.
do then? And I think that's some of the morality is AI a tool that we use, or is it something we're going to give our lives to, our soul to, and become begrudging to because it has power and it has wisdom and authority?
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that we can keep a healthy relationship with AI. I don't know what that looks like, and this podcast in a year could be completely irrelevant.
I
Or in
know.
5 years, which I was like, when we talked about this, I was like, I could be saying all this stuff and in 3 months be like, I don't agree with anything I just said. Um, but I think for me, the places that it kind of gets a little scary is in the arts. There's already like music tools. There's already, especially these AI photography things that can take your face and then like make you look like you're in a 90s yearbook or make you look
Yep.
like you're a character on Game of Thrones. And it's so cool and it's so realistic. But then I'm thinking about artists, who spend their lives creating and making, and then AI just
Yep.
spits something out. I'm hoping as a people that we continue to find passion and hunger from what other humans create out of their own life experience, whether that is through theater or visual arts, music, whatever that looks like. And I just think we have to stay grounded as a
Hmm.
society to be able to not weaponize AI and lose who we are as a people and especially the creative side. Like that's the one thing that I'm like scared that we're making it too easy where people don't have to use their brains.
Yeah. Well, like in Hollywood, the writers' unions on strike, and AI being able to duplicate all their writing, come up with stories, like you just said, the art piece. It's like, for me, and that's what our friend was talking about. He said AI is not the problem. It's us accepting a role for AI that it's not prepared to do yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I don't want AI creating. I want AI informing. I want AI to be like a book at the library that I get to choose when I check it out, when I reference it, when I listen to it, when I implement it. It's a tool for me to consult with, but I do not want it driving, guiding, protecting, creating art. I don't want it doing any of that. And of course, a year from now, AI may find this video and may shut both of us down if it doesn't like what we said about it. But I guess for me, I don't see anything immoral about using AI as a resource, as a research tool, as a consultant kind of piece. But I do feel like if a pastor just walked up and said, I need a sermon for Sunday morning, give me something on faith, that's not your work. That's not inspired. That's
Mm-hmm.
bogus. Or if you're having it write a term paper, that's not your work. That's not proving your intellect in that subject. Or artwork, that's not your creativity. It took something from here and something from there, and it's not giving proper credit to the words or the images that were created. I think it's going to come back to how we utilize it. Obviously, there are going to be people that's going to use it appropriate. Obviously, there's people that's going to misuse it, and there's people that's going to be scared of it, and they're not going to have anything to do with it. But I think as far as morality is concerned, I think it's how we use it that determines how immoral it could be. If someone writes a 20-page term paper and has AI go through and fact check it or whatever, and it comes up with two mistakes and you fix it, that's your work as far as I'm concerned. If you, however, tell AI to write a 20-page report on dolphins and you've not done any research, I feel like that's immoral.
Yeah. Yeah. And it will be interesting. Again, we're having this conversation as two Joe Schmoes who are just like, this is fascinating. This is so interesting. Who knows where this is going to go? And maybe we'll, in like a year or so, we'll have a follow-up conversation because it's going at such an insane pace that 6 months to a year from now, I feel like there'll be some pretty significant, I don't know, trajectories of what this looks like for us as a society. But I definitely agree with you, like keeping the boundaries of this, because too much of anything is a bad thing kind of idea. And I feel like we don't want to take away the human side, the humanity side. We want to keep the creativity. We want to keep the realness of people's work. And also, I just don't want people being dumb. Oh, I know that sounds maybe mean, but it's like I remember, staying up all night in college and like crying my eyes out as I like finished a research paper, and it made me a better person to have to like do it myself, to work hard, to, critically think, to check my grammar, to make sure I was on top of my stuff. So I just don't want it to be a weaponized thing to where it ruins parts of our society, and especially keeps us from thinking critically or being creative. Like that's the scariest part.
Yeah. So I just want to respond by saying this. Again, I think of AI as brain matter. It's data information. It comes from the head. It doesn't come from the heart. Mm-hmm. And so, the original AI is Hallmark. Hallmark, write me a love letter card to my wife for her birthday. And Hallmark just spits out this generic AI, kind of thing. And then some brother, signs, love Nick. Okay, great. That was brilliant. Oh, that was brilliant. It's much different if a brother goes out and he writes a poem, writes a letter, and then says, AI, take a look at this and tell me if there's anything I missed. And it just tweaks one one phrase in your poem. Man, that could just, that's good stuff, man. You worked on it. You actually wrote it. You edited it. You did the stuff. That's way different than just picking a card off the rack and put love Nick. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel like that, again, morality goes back to us humans. And we've proven we can be very immoral. We've proven that we can use everything, right?
Yeah.
So why would we think that we're not going to use AI in some immoral ways as well?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And it's already happening. So I think for everybody moving forward with all of this, like listen to different people talk about it. Always listen to a variety of voices. It is something that, as a whole society doesn't quite understand the magnitude. And I think just keeping yourself educated with different people's opinions and experiences. You don't want to get trapped into some fear stuff. And there is some good, there is some bad. But honestly, isn't that everything? Like, that is truly everything.
And listen to your heart. I mean, we're human beings. And God created us with a heart. And if we can listen to our heart, tap into that. And if it just freaks you out, then back away from it. I think we're at a season right now with AI where a lot of the developers have put product out there. So now it's being tested. But there's not enough users yet for the developers and or AI to learn from. So I think, like you said, we're going to see exponential growth in the next 6 months, 18 months of how this is going to be used. And again, it is a static tool that can be used for good and it can be used for evil. We get to decide the morality of AI based on our own use of it. And so my heart is that it can be a tool that helps mankind figure out some solutions and some problems we've never figured out before. But I still feel like we got to lead with the heart, not with our brain.
Yeah. Especially, again, these places of creativity and true human connection. It has to be real. Well, Nick, fascinating conversation. Definitely something I would have never put on the list that we would have probably ever talked about, but it's so prevalent in our culture and our society that it was kind of like, All right. Let's chat about this. Let's talk about it. And so we want to hear from you guys. Yeah. We want to hear, what are your thoughts on it? Have you done some research? Do you have an interesting resource that you'd like to pass on? We are learning and growing, and we want to hear more. We want to read more about this so that we're better informed as well. So if you have a resource, please shoot it our way. If you have just opinions on it, we want to hear it. We want to see where people are at with this because it's happening all around us. But I don't know if too many people are having like real conversations, even like inside their homes and closest friends about what does this feel like? What do we think about it? So feel free to share that with us via our socials or on our email, letsprocessthatpodcast@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you to this incredible music that you're hearing by Caleb Honerkamp. All of our promotional photography is done by Before the Foundations Photography, which is Allison. And to our producer, Adrian Wos, for making sure that this all comes together. We look forward to more conversations. We want to hear from you, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.